morning, Jesus is on the road ministering to the people. And some religious leaders stop him along the way. And they say, scary things are happening. Agents of the state are arresting people. Herod, who put John the Baptist to death for mere words, is after you. You ought to run. You ought to hide. You ought to at least lay low. And Jesus says, tell that fox, Herod, that today, tomorrow, and the next day, I have work to do. And I intend to keep doing it. I must be on my way on the path to Jerusalem. And it is at this word, Jerusalem, that Jesus' response takes a turn in tone. And it is a turn toward lament. Jerusalem is a place on a map, yes. But more deeply, it is the symbolic spot where God's dream for us meets humanity's resistance to that dream. Over and over and over. Jerusalem, the holy city of peace, the suffering city of war. It is here that we see the divide between what we are and what we were made to be. It is also here that we see the hope of a new world revealed. Jerusalem, Jerusalem. The violence of the cross, the silence of the tomb, and always the brightest hope of resurrection, all together, all at the same time. Ours is a ministry and a life lived in that hope. The hope of God's coming reign, but I'm not sure we acknowledge enough. I acknowledge enough out loud that there is a painful edge to that commitment to hope. Because we have no choice but to live here. In this real, gritty world. The same world Jesus of Nazareth entered into. And as a people looking toward a new and coming world order that our God promises, we feel the difference. The chasm between what is and what should and what can and what will be. And that chasm is where lament lives. Jerusalem, Jerusalem is a cry of lament. Jesus does not ask us to deny this kind of feeling. He has these feelings. We have not been unfaithful if we feel sad or bereft or alone or angry or any particular way. Out of his lament, Jesus tells us he longs to gather us and teach us to be together in the way that God envisions. And he describes himself not as a leopard or a bear or an apex predator, but as a hen, a small, ordinary creature, a creature known to be hunted by foxes. He describes himself as a mother hen, strong and also tender, loud and also vulnerable. This is our God. And we are on the road with this God. And along that road, we will be stopped and told that scary things are happening. This week, we were stopped and told that agents of the state are arresting people for mere words. Agents in plain clothes, without a warrant, without charges, taking someone from New York to Louisiana. Scary. You ought to run, you ought to hide, you ought to at least lay low. I hear a voice whisper, just don't say anything. It'll be fine. I am grateful that Bishop Matthew Hyde of the Episcopal Diocese of New York did not listen to that voice. Instead, he got to the work of today and tomorrow and the next day. He released a public statement that read, in part, quote, "In accordance with our faith and civic creed, we uphold the belief that the difference and dissent should be safe. We reject deportation based on a political viewpoint, whether we agree or disagree. We take Jesus' call to welcome. I was a stranger and he welcomed me. And the calls in the Hebrew Bible, the alien who resides with you shall be to you as the native born among you. In the arrest and detention of Mahmoud Khalil, our First Amendment right to freedom of expression faces growing threat. We ask for his immediate release and his return to New York." Unquote. Even and especially when the fox is at the door, Jesus tells us we must continue the work of today and tomorrow and the next day. And lest we read this, as we will, as products of our culture, as a call to the work of constant productivity, that it is not. It is a call to the work of ministry. And ministry is protest and resistance and activism and civic action and letter writing and calling and demonstrating and voting and risking. It is political. And ministry is praying and healing and teaching and caretaking and visiting and feeding and helping and clothing. It is service. And ministry is gathering and connecting and knowing and noticing and loving and worshiping and learning and laughing and watching and reading and crying and singing together. It is community. It is worth remembering that as we carry out the work of today and tomorrow and the next day in this time and this place, we ought not deny ourselves space for lament. And we also need not consign ourselves to a constant state of grief. Please allow yourselves to find joy and celebration whenever and wherever you can, I can name at least 6 events this week at St. John's alone, I counted, when I found that joy and celebration. How about you? Report to me later. Ministry is what we do alongside Jesus on the path to Jerusalem, which is the path to the cross and the path to resurrection. It is the work of today and tomorrow and the next day that sustains us until that time we know will come when all will be made new. It is the work we do together that assures us of that upside-down gospel truth that in the end, the mother hen is more powerful than the